Hello and welcome to the third weekly special episode of the Most Unwanted and X-Files podcast. I'm Luke and I'm joined by Chex.
Hi.
So these are our mini bios on the cast, or the characters, should we say, of the X-Files. So today we're going to be talking about Deepthroat and also about X as well, because they both sort of play similar roles. Deepthroat was a mysterious informer to Fox Mulder in season 1, and he would often reveal his information in cryptic manners. We never really knew what side he was actually on, but I suppose at the start of the series, what did you think of him?
Well, I think we can sort of do this episode a little bit differently. We can sort of start with Deepthroat and then talk about how X contrasts to him, I suppose.
I suppose that's a better way to do it.
And Deepthroat, for me, I think he brought the intrigue to the series.
Oh, yeah.
He was introduced very early on, I believe in the second episode.
He had an episode named after him.
He did, he certainly did, yeah. And, that was the second episode, wasn't it?
Yeah, second episode.
And when he was introduced, I didn't really know what to make of him. He seemed to know a lot he seemed to know a lot more than he was letting on. And he seemed to have all the cards.
Yeah.
Now, as the sort of season went on, I believe that less and less. I believe he was more of a pawn than he would like to have believed. Yeah,
and we never really found out as well about his sort of affiliation. Like, because there was one episode where he sort of at the end implied that he wasn't really working for either side.
Mm-hmm.
And he was sort of just...
All we know is he works for the government. That's it. And we don't know what part. But... yeah, so he played that informant and he played that role. I mean, I suppose a lot of the times it was the exposition role. It was telling you what the audience and the characters, what they needed to know to get it from A to B.
Yeah.
But as the series went on, he played a larger and larger role, and I think it became this sort of, especially in setting up the story between Mulder versus the government.
Yeah, definitely.
Which wasn't a big storyline at the start. It was Mulder trying to find aliens, or Mulder and Scully trying to find aliens.
Basically, yeah, and it wasn't until towards the end of the first series where we started to see this plot, and ultimately ended up with what happened to Deepthroat, of him sort of sacrificing himself, I guess, for this, and we finally see how dangerous this plot is.
Yeah, and I feel like we need to talk about that because... if you remember, going into the sort of season finale of season 1, there was questions that was being asked, and I think it was intentional, that which side was Deepthroat on? Was he working for Mulder, or not working for Mulder? Was he trying to help Mulder, or was he sending him round the loop? And then Scully sort of argued that maybe he didn't have Mulder's interest at heart.
Yeah.
It can be looked at different ways, but I think we mentioned this on the episode, that I think he did sacrifice himself. I think he went into that final confrontation with the bounty hunter.
Yeah.
It wasn't the bounty hunter, was it? It was the crew cut man.
Crew cut man, that's it, yeah.
The crew cut man. Knowing he was going to die.
Yeah.
But did it to save Mulder.
Yeah.
And that adds this sort of incredible bravery to a character that we don't really know that much about.
That's the thing. He sort of sacrificed himself, but we don't really know why.
No.
He just did it.
And which, I mean, you would assume it would be for the greater good.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
Because when that becomes the only thing you know about him, I sort of almost already see him as like this legendary figure. And I don't really know that much about him, apart from heroic acts, which we don't even know whether it was heroic.
Yeah.
So he kept this sort of air of mystery right the way through.
And I mean, we might find out more as the series go on about his role in things, so I guess we'll see. Really.
Well, before we move on to X, do you think he still has a part to play? And obviously, I'm assuming he's dead. I'm assuming that's it for him. He won't come back.
I think he's definitely gone.
But do you think he'll still be brought up? Do you think...
I think because he had such a close tie with whatever was going on, and he knew more than he was letting on, I feel like we'll find out what his role was later on. Maybe just sort
of get a few reveals about him.
Yeah, I get the feeling we'll learn a bit more about him. But I feel like his active part is done, but I feel like we'll learn a bit more about him as we go.
That's interesting.
So we might as well move on to again. We can't say after 49 episodes what do you think because now he's been sort of replaced by a new character, X. Who's been in it since series 2, episode 1.
I believe
quite
so.
early on. What do you think of X, or how do you think X has taken on?
Very different.
Yeah.
Immediately they play the same sort of role, that sort of informant role. But it's a completely different approach to the character. X seems a lot more brash, a lot more cautious, and we've also seen that side of him where he's almost a little bit unhinged.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, there's one scene where he just kills a guy
in cold blood.
Yeah, without hesitation.
Yeah, and that's after breaking his arm in half. So. We know he can handle himself. We don't know how he knows that. We don't know what, again, like Deepthroat, we don't know what division he's in. We don't know what role he has to play. But I feel like he's more of a threat than Deepthroat was.
Yeah, he seems like a threat, and it seems like he's not going to get you out of a bind, whereas Deepthroat would, as we found out, stick his neck out for Mulder and Scully. I feel like if it comes down to X or Mulder and Scully, he's going to just let them hang, basically.
Yes.
I don't feel they can't rely on X, whereas they could rely on Deepthroat.
Which leads me to the sort of question, and I don't know the answer. I'll put this to you and see if we can figure it out between us. What's his motives then? What if you had to say his motives right now? Because he doesn't seem to want to help. So why is he helping? Because he doesn't need to.
I think ultimately he is trying to help. But I think he's not willing to. I think he's just dipping his toe.
He doesn't want to get himself involved.
Yeah, basically, he's trying to distance himself as much as possible whilst helping.
Which is interesting because I've never thought about this before. But again, we've only watched up to sort of just coming to the end of season 2, so we could find out a lot more in the future about him.
Yeah.
But if you look at the two characters, then you could almost say they're contrasting that way. Whereas you had Deepthroat, who we know did this huge courageous act, and you could almost look at X as being cowardly.
To a degree, yeah.
If you look at that way of completely just not getting himself involved.
Or
smarter.
I was going to say, or you could look at Deepthroat as being a bit of an idiot for getting himself involved in that depth.
Very, very good point, because I think X has said as much, and forgive me for forgetting the episode, but he said that Deepthroat's getting involved with you as much as he did led to his death, and that won't happen to me.
Exactly.
So you could see him as being shrewd rather than cowardly.
And I suppose that brings us neatly on to our next question: is where do you see the character of X, or maybe if X dies and we get a third informant in the third series? How do you see that sort of panning out in the future, or how do you see them fitting into the universe?
For me, I would assume that coming into this sort of season 3, I feel like they're gonna, whoever, if it is X or whoever his successor will be, needs to play a more prominent role. I think we're gonna find out more, and they're gonna start playing a part in the story.
Yeah.
Because at the moment they're sort of on the sidelines, and I feel like in order to get to the sort of crux of this cover up, this plot, it needs to go through them, because we don't know who else to go to at this point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So I think that's where we're going to see it. But again, it's very hard to say, because the whole point of the characters they're shrouded in mystery.
I do think we are going to see X stick around longer than Deepthroat, just because he is more of a, as you said earlier, a shrewd character. So I do think we're going to see a lot more of X. And to be honest, because it's coming up to the end of the series, and they tend to end their series on these mythology episodes, I get the feeling we're going to see a lot of him quite soon.
It would surprise me if we didn't.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to it. And just on a personal note, just before we finish off this episode, I actually like X. Like, if I'm talking about the sort of the actors and the sort of characters, I like Deepthroat more because he's a likable character, but I actually like the character of X more than Deepthroat. I think he adds a little bit of a dynamic that we didn't have before, which was this Mulder almost reluctantly relies on X in certain points, and X holds this power, and he knows he holds this power.
Exactly, yeah.
And plus, one of my favourite little sort of ways to film an episode is having X from the shadows.
Yeah.
And the way every time you watch every shot of X, he protrudes from the shadows the more he reveals to Mulder, which is just a lovely metaphor, and it's such a beautiful way to film it.
Yeah.
I love that side of it.
Yeah, I agree. So that was X and Deepthroat. Tomorrow, we'll be looking at Skinner.
My favourite character, and I cannot wait.
You've given the game away there. But anyway, we'll catch you tomorrow, guys.